Welcome aboard the Africa Tram Safari. I'm Victoria. I'm going to be your guide for the next half hour as we go out and explore Africa. So before we get too fully distracted though, look up above you. You guys are going to see a yellow strip that you're going to press in the event of a medical emergency in order to grab my attention. For the pair right behind me, there is no yellow strip, I lied. But don't worry, you girls are just going to shove through the window or just give it a tap. Now if anything falls overboard, that's not a medical emergency, so instead look for plants or animals, remember where the item fell, and let me know when we come back to the station. Also, there are a lot of cool animals out here. And we might see a checkup on the flamingos up ahead. But we do want to remain safe while we're looking at things out here, so if I'm in motion, please remain sitting at all times. And when I come to a full, complete stop, you are welcome to stand up to get a better view or picture. We are coming back to east, but you can see the wildebeest, the giraffe, and the rhinos, along with the Tafasa waterbuck, all hanging out, mixing and intermingling together. Alright, and up ahead, I'm going to jump off the mic, but you are going to see some keeper activity. Our greater flamingos are getting their yearly checkup, and I'll explain it afterwards.
도민고 뭐 살리기 운동 뭐 그런 거죠.
Alright. So, yeah, I just want to hop off the mic when we pass by. There's a lot of activity as we can see. And it's a lot happening, and the tram is loud. I don't want to add to it and any extra distractions for the staff or the animals. But once a year, our flamingos are going to get a checkup between our animal care staff and vet team. And that takes a lot of coordination, as we saw. The flamingos get corralled into one section of their lagoon, what we saw with the black fencing. And then they have a little hall that they basically go through. And then we'll take them one at a time, let them go see the different vet staff to go, look them over, make sure everyone is in good health, you know, typical yearly physical checkup thing. And then we'll put them back out into the water, and that way you can keep track of who's had what, and identifying all the birds that's needed so that we can give them their individual care. But as you can see, it took a lot of people to make that happen. It's a lot of coordination. There's always something going on up here. And up ahead, I can see the caretakers are either retrieving or placing in a new animal in the field. I don't actually fully know because I am seeing this in the same context as you guys. I just happen to be here a little bit more often. But anytime we have to do any hands-on contact with the animal, or introduce them to new spaces, or do anything else extra with them, have some of the vet care teams come in and do a checkup or something, it takes a lot of coordination, trying to make sure we have a safe environment, make sure the animals are as de-stressed as possible, and then a lot of observation before and after as well. And you can see the Gamsbach over here have decided that they're going to stay over here and away from their normal spot. So we do get a look at some beautiful African antelope looking real pretty. The Gamsbach are some of my favorite animals, but I always want to admire these guys from a distance because as pretty as they are, they have some of the biggest attitudes out here in the field, and they are showing it off. The vibrant colors here are suited for the harsh lifestyles that they have out in the Kalahari and the mid-deserts of southern Africa. So that really pretty lavender grayish tone on their overall body coat is really perfect camouflage for that environment. You can see they match the soil here pretty well. They also have really long, elegant horns, perfect for getting their points across because they are very competitive with each other. They are going to fight and spar over access to the limited resources in their deserts. They live in extreme environments and therefore have extreme lives. And that does take a lot of energy. As capable as they are at competing and using those horns, they don't want to waste their energy or their time. So you can see the vivid black and white on these girls and the one male that's in here. That is more pink. So standing out that extremely on the face and legs is a great way within their herd to show off size and intimidation. Because looking tough is just as important as actually being tough. And in a herd, where you are relying on social protection, but also trying to get what you need as an individual, that's going to come up quite a bit. And you will see some other antelopes sporting the same things. The gemsbuck are just very vivid over it. You can see the caretaker activity up ahead. It's really got the animals just watching. They're very aware of their habitats. They know the caretakers, they know the trucks, but they also know that certain vehicles mean certain things. So when they see the trailer, they're like, what is happening? So right around the corner here, you can see our male ellipsin waterbuck. And he's hanging out with the female waterbuck. He's the only one with horns. Total opposite lifestyle as a gemsbuck. Male or female, the gemsbuck all have the same features and markings and colors. For the ellipsin waterbuck, because they live so close to the water, only the boy is going to be rocking the headgear. It's his way of showing off to the ladies and going up against any rival males. Because for him, making sure to look pretty and have a lot of kids is the end-all be-all. And everything on that horns are all about that. But he does have a lot of predators where he lives, living along the water and reeds. So he does match the females in terms of physical appearance aside from the horns, because they are very camouflage-focused species. And these all are going to benefit from the vultures hanging out right over here at the bird marsh. So wetlands are really important. We have a lot of yellow-billed storks, sacred ibises. There is a spoonbill over there by the lapid-faced vulture that is pancaking flat on the ground. And a lot of these birds live in very lush areas. So wetlands are really important as buffer zones between habitats, retaining water, and helping to protect a lot of different plants and animal species. And the vultures are going to make sure everything is clean and healthy, no matter where they're living. On that rock there, you're looking at two white-caped vultures. It's an adult, and I think the fledgling. I think the one to the right is a little more tan. So our white-caped vultures specifically, the breeding pair, male and female, were rescued from South Africa. They were living on a sanctuary because they were injured out in the wild on power lines and could not be released back out there. So we brought them here to help their conservation instead, and they have been forming a very deep connective bond because vultures are monogamous for life. They are one of the most romantic, dedicated birds to each other. And they help all the animals that you see out here thrive because they are scavengers and eat dead animals. And even though you might think that's a little creepy, they are essential for a thriving ecosystem because if they disappeared, we would be in trouble. Just like if the garbage men in your neighborhood disappeared, we would also be in big trouble. Scavengers have very crucial jobs. They are nature's cleanup crew, and they prevent diseases like rabies and botulism. So even if they're not your favorite animal, they are helping your favorites. And they are very important to help these animals thrive out in the wild with the jobs that they play. Alright, so over here, it looks like they're rounding up an individual animal, or doing a checkup on it just like with the flamingos. So, again, the tram is loud. I don't want to be too much of a distraction, so we're not going to linger. But there is always a lot of activity. These are really big animals with a lot of needs and extra requirements to thrive, and we have to make sure we're providing all of that. We have one of the, if not the best, exotic vet care zoo teams in the country, so they are in good hands. And you're really seeing the teamwork making the dream work over there with the caretakers, all working together, keeping an eye on what is happening right there in the area that they're working on, as well as observing all the animals, and the animals in turn observing them. So it's a very active little morning for everybody out here. We're looking at we're looking at Patterson eland and Sable antelope. The Patterson eland are the big golden girls. They are giant tanks. Antelope come in just about every size and shape you can imagine. And it pays to be big. The bigger you are, the safer you are, the less predators you have to contend with. So our Patterson eland here are relying on their sheer size for protection. And they are generalists. Unlike a lot of the other animals out here, they're not going to be quite as specialized to a specific area. And that's actually a good adaptation. It means you're going to make a living anywhere. And the golden tan color of the eland is going to help with that because they can live in deserts, grasslands, woodlands, forests, anything in between. Basically any habitat in Africa, they can adapt to it. That does mean they're not going to have a lot of flashy colors. While the sable antelope here, who are specialized, are going to be more like the gemsbuck in terms of competition. So you can see they have a white mask on their face, really highlighting those big, beautiful horns. And these girls are very competitive with each other for social dynamics. Sable antelope live in the woodlands of Southeast Africa, so that dark brown is doing two things. One is blending into the shadows like a ninja, and two is helping to show off social hierarchy. There's a lot of dominance in their herds, so the darker in coloration they are, the higher up they go in position of the herd, all the way to whoever's in charge. That is very important to showcase because, again, just like the gemsbok, looking tough and displaying how tough you are is just as important as actually being so. And so they do have that high contrast white on their base that elongate those horns and look extra intimidating. And you will see the babies aren't quite as deep in contrast or colored as the adults. Sable antelope are very territorial, unlike most species of antelope. And that is because water is a very limited resource in the woodlands where they live. They have food and shelter, but water isn't always a given. So they are going to compete very strongly against other herds, which is why they have such deep colors to look really fierce and tough. But because they're not moving as much, they are using a tucking strategy with their babies, which means when a baby sable is born, mom is going to tuck them along the terrain, hidden in the nooks and crannies of the ground, which, and you can see out here in this field, does have a lot of hiding opportunities. And the lighter coloration of the babies is better suited for that ground level camouflage. They start off as a very light tan color, and then as they age, they transition into that deeper dark brown of the adults. That is a great way to help blend in with a different part of their environment, and also socially to showcase, hey, I can't compete yet, I don't have all of the behaviors and things down, I'm a kid. So a lot of visual communication just in a difference of colors for them. Right here we're going to be seeing our Maasai giraffe hanging out. And we're going to pull up just past this clay bowman here so we can get a view of them. The one who's up on the tree back there, that is our breeding male Gullon. He's our bull giraffe. He is literally tall, dark, and handsome, so he's always very easy to spot amongst the giraffe. But that gives him good reproductive success where he lives, or with these girls, because he is looking as pretty as possible for them. Giraffe are very capable camouflagers. They are actually cryptic camouflagers. The iconic spots of a giraffe are meant to blend in with the dappled light of shadows and the undergrowth that surrounds them in their immediate space around trees and the bush that dot the savanna. So they are a savanna species, but they're a little more specialized within a part of it. And those spots help blend in and break them up. So as big and tall as they are, they can still disappear very effectively. And that height also does come in handy because they eat 75 pounds of leaves a day. You want to reach high up into the canopy to get that, as we can see going over there doing. The reason that tree has a very flat bottom is because of him and the other giraffe feeding on the leaves within reach. They do all of the tree trimming in here. We don't do any of it. So they are literally shaping their environment. They have a big impact on where they live, just based on how they exist, doing their own thing. Giraffe are also going to rely on that height to be aware of their surroundings. They see everything within about a 2-mile radius. They have fantastic vision. And what that means being the lookouts of the savanna. Because they see everything around them, a lot of the other animals are looking to them to make sure everything's a-okay in the neighborhood. And if the giraffe ever decided to take off running, everybody takes off running. Both here in the South Africa field and out in the wild. Because you survive in such harsh conditions in the wild by reacting first and asking questions later. So all of these animals, even when you see them just kind of relaxing on their own, they are still observing their neighbors. They are still keeping an eye on things. They're being aware of their surroundings. We're going to also see the Cape buffalo. You can see one of the young ones giving themselves a nice little roll on the grass, a nice little stretch. And over here on the right, we're going to see the Somali wild ass. So, and do our dromedary camel. This is our desert habitat right here. The Cape buffalo, as you can see, are very vivid. They do stand out as a warning sign to other animals how big and tough they are. They are 2,000-pound tanks. So they are big and hefty animals like the Patterson, but that dark coloration is advertising that they also have an equal amount of attitude with that bulk. And it is a bad idea to mess with them. And not just individuals, the entire family. They're very protective of each other, and if you mess with one, you mess with them all. So they are not trying to blend in. They are warning you to back off. With the Somali wild ass right here, they are blending into the desert, just like Dune the dromedary camel. Dune is a retired ambassador, so he is a desert animal, but now he's in retirement with these girls. He loves hanging out in these hills and just kind of watching everything. He's like a guard dog, like the old man on the neighborhood, just watching everything. And he is very social. So he does very much adore the company of the wild ass ladies out here because they're always a lot of fun. With the Somalis right here, they are less social, but Dune, like I said, is a good guard dog, so they like his company. Looking at these girls, you can see how they do communicate. They have those pretty striped stockings on those legs. That is a nice visual that they are related to zebra, and also that they know how to use those legs. Within the herd, they are using that to communicate, I'm in a mood and about ready to kick you if you don't back off. And that's also why you see the white around their muzzles. They are ornery animals that live up to the name, and they have those temperaments. And anything related to a horse is going to bite and kick. So showing it off within the group is good. It's good practice. These girls, unfortunately, are a critically endangered species that we care for. Somali wild ass, at best, have only a couple hundred left in the wild where they're from in Somalia. Their biggest threats are desertification and overhunting. So desertification is the desert becoming more extreme. It's becoming a harsher landscape than what they're adapted to, which means less food and water that they either travel greater distances for or just have less of. That is a form of climate change that is affecting them. It is more extreme deserts than faster. On top of that, they are being overhunted because of the civil unrest and human conflict happening in our country, and we cannot actively go and address the issues that they're facing. For some of our endangered animals, like Kendi, our eastern black rhino, hanging out right by the gate right there, and his girlfriend on the other side, so that they're still together because they're very in love with each other. Kendi is just going to be having some interactions and checkups of his own on a more personal basis with his caretakers later today when they're back over here. We can help animals like the eastern black rhino in the wild in various parts of East Africa where they're from. But for a lot of these animals, conservation is going to take time. And we are always going to be dedicated to that process, but it does take a lot of team effort to make happen. So with the Somalis, it's making sure we're working with other zoos that actually have them in their facility so that we can kind of pool our resources and help provide the future of that animal. And then eventually, the goal would be to help Somalia reintroduce their species back out in the wild when the people there are in a place to care for it. Because with all the issues they have right now, they're definitely not in a place to care about their wildlife. That's a big part of conservation. People have to be able to thrive just as much as the plants and animals and be able to take care of their own needs before they can address their wildlife. For our black rhinos, there's about 5,000 of them left in the wild. So even without all the other threats that they are facing, boosting their numbers is a big thing to overcome, and it is going to take time. Especially when you're that big like a rhino, you are pregnant for a long time, and you are with your babies for a long time. When our girl black rhino Aria becomes pregnant, she's going to be so for 18 months. And then on top of that, she's going to be with her baby for 2 to 3 years before she potentially has another one. So even without taking into consideration poaching, habitat loss, or any other issues these animals face, if they have low numbers, it's going to take a while to change that and turn it around for them. Not everyone out here is endangered. We do have stable animals who are pretty well off. On either side of us, you can see these big tan antelope. These are round antelope. They come from the grasslands of Central Africa. We have boys on the left, girls on the right. And you can see they are very uniform with each other, living in their grasslands out in the open. They don't want to stand out. No one wants a target on their back. But you can see they are showing off how big and tough they are to each other because they are having a lot of the same visual cues as their cousins, the chocolate brown sable antelope. Road and sable are in the same family of antelope that are very horse-like in physique. In fact, their family name literally means that. And they are very intense and competitive and territorial over water, because both of their environments in the different parts of Africa have that as a big limiting factor. So they have different overall body colors to suit the places where they live specifically, but you can still see there's a lot in common between them in terms of horns, physicality, and looks. And the drone are stable in the grasslands where they're from, so they are doing pretty good. We always want to make sure our animals have healthy numbers just in case anything ever changes, and also to show off the diversity and well-being of animals. You guys are seeing a huge array of different species in a short period of time just on the tour. And most of them are all antelope, so you are seeing the same basic body plan being adapted and specialized to all the different environments and habitats throughout the continent of Africa. Like right here, that is Sitatunga. It's a very young Sitatunga, so that is a boy who has a very female coloring, but he is a swamp antelope. And we're going to see another Sitatunga right here, a little older of a male, so he has much more of a brownish tone, and he is rocking those big, beautiful horns. Living in the swamps and marshlands along the more lush tropical forests of Africa, these Sitatunga do have a lot of resources. So the boys are really stand out. They are dressed to impress, to have a better chance at wooing any of the girls. It's like a peacock trying to impress a peahen. It's the same energy. So the females in the family of this antelope don't have horns. They don't have the same stand-out coloration. They're much more camouflage focused because they have babies to look out for, and the boys don't participate in childbearing, so they like to show off more. But that works out for them and their reproductive strategies. But when you live in the open spaces without a lot of cover, you kind of want to match one another, whether you're male or female. So over here we're going to see our grubby zebra. This is a group of boys. Aside from our 2 black rhinos living in here, it's a lot of young males living together. And it's every stereotype you can imagine, a bunch of ratty teens living on their own for the first time. And you just saw a red-tailed hawk take off from where we were. A lot of local birds come and make their homes here, and we are part of the ecosystem out here. So a lot of local wildlife comes and soars out here. Just disappears into that tree. So down with the grubby zebras, it is our breeding male hibari living with his 4 young sons. So grubby zebras are another endangered species that we manage, but we also want to make sure we have proper healthy herds that we can take care of in numbers that we can manage. So our male is very good at his job, and this year they're actually taking a break from breeding. So these guys are staying entirely separate from the girls this year, which is very healthy because we want to make sure that we have good genetic records and animals that we're caring for. So when a species is endangered, you're not just pumping out babies willy-nilly. You have to make sure you're caring for the individuals and the species as a whole. It's a lot of management. But this is also very good for them socially because the young males do need the chance to practice a lot of the rowdy, rambunctious, roughhousing, and fighting behaviors essential for their adult lives. And living with a bunch of other adolescent boys is a good chance to hone those skills. But for a lot of these herd animals, males have to be good at fighting for dominance and breeding rights, and they need the chance to do that. Females will depend more on where they live and how competitive and inclined to sparring and competing they are. And we've seen both sides of that. We've seen some antelope where the girls are very competitive and some where they're less so. But separating the sexes out, that is something that happens in the wild, so it is a social situation we are recreating for our animals, as well as helping us to better care for and manage them. Probably one of the biggest differences in them and their reproductive life cycles out in the wild is in these big herds. There's a little more difference in who the dad is of all the kids when they do breed and have them. Here we typically only have one boy at a time with the ladies because we do need to keep track of the genetics of our animals and who is related to who, and we also want healthy genetic diversity. But I think that just means our males always get a bit of a confidence boost when they are with the girls, because as far as they're concerned, they're so good, no other males even want to challenge them. They just get to flirt all day. But the girls do spend a lot of single, independent time together, like our springbok right now. It's just the girls as far as I'm aware. So right under that tree, you can see these cute little tinies. They are very fast and nimble. They have to evade cheetahs in South Africa in the grasslands. And you can see they are very good at that. They're very small and sleek. They're very, very fast. And they even have a little racing stripe to show off to you how quick they are. Which also, in turn, is a very good visual to size each other up and figure out who's worth the time competing with. Because with those beautiful high contrast visuals on their lower half, the black and white, that is a visual cue that they are competing. But it's placed on a part of the body only the herd is going to see. And the tall grass, they blend in with the golden top of their cells. Alright, over on the right, you can just see the backside of one of our white antelope. That is a scimitar horned oryx that are native to North Africa in the Sahara Desert. So that beautiful girl is related to the lavender gemsbok we saw at the beginning of the tour. The biggest difference is scimitars don't have any war paint on their bodies, so they're primarily white antelope with kind of a brownish patch on the neck. They are just as fierce and competitive as their cousins. They also come from one of the harshest deserts in the world. But they want to reflect as much of the intensity and sun of the Sahara as possible, so they don't have any really dark colors. But they are well suited to that environment. They don't even have to drink water. They can get all of their water from their food. Unfortunately, despite the adaptation, scimitar horned oryx are extinct in the wild. They were wiped out in the 90s from overhunting, and they exist because we have them here at the safari park and other zoos around the world. But they are no longer thriving in their native home. And obviously we want to turn that around. We have been putting together, we have had very successful breeding with them, and they have a pretty good backup population at this point. But now their biggest thing is reintroduction, which means restoring native habitats and places for them to actually live in, as well as fostering the connections and making sure that the people who actually live in the same areas as those big animals can do so. And that means working with the local communities out there to help with all of that. We have to help people make sure that they have the chances for growth and success, that they are building healthy connections with their wildlife, and are in a place to care for themselves and the animals and plants around them. So that is happening out in a few countries in North Africa, and that does also happen out here in San Diego. Conservation is not a far off exotic thing. It is in our own backyard. An example out here would be Southern California, specifically out in our city. We are home to the California coastal sage scrub, which is the beautiful landscape you see on all the hills out here. This is one of the most diverse landscapes in the continent. I'm going to be quiet again. So you can see the process of what I described before happening in action. But a lot of care goes into animals here, and we put just as much care into the native wild spaces around us. Out of the 1,800 acres of the safari park, half of it is set aside as a reserve. The California coastal sage scrub that you see on the hills out here is one of the most diverse and beautiful landscapes in North America, and it's also one of the most endangered. So Southern California is also a very urbanized environment. So it is a very strong balancing act to make sure that the people out here have a place to live while also protecting the beautiful, unique plants and animals all around us. And we have to foster those connections so that people want to do that just as much here as we do out in other continents with really big, charismatic animals, like the rhino right next to us. So it doesn't matter where you live, it doesn't matter where your favorite animals are from, there is conservation all around you. One of the best things you can do locally is, if you're able, plant local species from your specific area in your gardens or backyards. But if you also want to help some of your favorite animals, like our southern white rhino here, showing off just how big 5,000 pounds is, and showcasing how pretty they are with Casey, our beautiful lady right here, hanging out with her baby girl Alice, who's laying down having a nap. Alice is about a year old and over 1,000 pounds. She's a big baby. And we also have an adorable little baby of the giraffe. I say little, that is relative. This baby is 6 foot tall. Hopefully give you an idea of just how big those giraffe are. Because honestly, she's probably closer to like 6'2", 6'3". She's just shy of a month old, I think. So if you are in love with this giraffe baby or the rhinos over here and you want to help them on your own time, that is my biggest hope. But one of the easiest ways to get into that with conservation in your own time is education and awareness. Whatever captures your imagination about a species or an animal or how it lives, where it lives, some of the challenges that it's facing or how we're protecting them, that is an essential part of getting other people excited. And if it interests you, it's probably going to interest someone you know as well. So whether it's on social media, when you're posting your pictures online, or showing off your day in person with your friends and family, talk about the animals, why they were so special to you, and normalize that push for education. knowledge about these guys is more common so that more people band together to help protect them. Because even the big icons like giraffe are facing population declines, and we want to turn that around and keep them around in the savannas. Because they're beautiful, we love them, and they have very important jobs out there, as is the case with everyone else. But we are out of clothes. I can't keep you forever. So I do hope you guys had a great time. I hope you got to learn a new few things about some of these animals, see some cool activities. If you have any comments, questions, curiosities, I'll be hanging out by the tram right in front of it as you guys exit out to the right. Thank you guys for joining.